A modern office hallway, lit by cold LED lights. The sound of hurried footsteps echoes in the silence, ***. Impeccable blazer, work bag in one hand, my son's backpack in the other. My face is tense, eyes red from sleepless nights. The wall clock reads 9:12 a.m. 12 minutes, ***, that's all it took to destroy 4 years of loyalty. I'm Lauren Carter, 29 years old, and for the past 4 years, I've worked as Senior Operations Manager at Bryce and Hartwell. Today, I was fired for arriving 12 minutes late due to my son's illness. My badge deactivated publicly by Daniel, who dismissed me with humiliation. I entered the Bryce and Hartwell lobby with my heart racing. Joe, the security guard who always greeted me with coffee, avoided my gaze. My badge didn't work on the biometric scanner. A sharp beep, red. I tried again. Another beep. Daniel Reynolds, in his glass office, watched from the security monitor. A thin smile crossed his face as he typed something. Problem, Lauren? His voice carried behind me, loud enough for the entire open space to hear. Employees lifted their heads from their desks. Ryan, the junior analyst, froze mid-sip of coffee. Nicole from accounting pressed her lips together. I turned, still clutching my son's backpack. Daniel, I called. Ethan has a fever. The babysitter canceled. I had to take him. Rules are rules, he interrupted, snatching the badge from my hand. If you wanted flexibility, you should have worked at a daycare. Daniel slid the badge into his suit pocket, the sound of fabric tearing through the silence. With an air of arrogance and zero empathy, he announced loud and clear. You're fired. And since your access is revoked, Joe will escort you to your desk. Take only what's yours. I stood frozen under the stares of dozens of colleagues. The child's backpack slipped from my shoulder, hitting the floor with a dull thud. The stuffed bear Ethan insisted I take 4 luck tumbled out. Memories flooded me. Working until 3 a.m., laptop glowing over my bed, Ethan asleep beside me. Missing my son's school recital to close a deal. Daniel's email, clients first, Lauren. Your son will understand when he's older. My name buried in the fine print of a presentation Daniel pitched to the board as his work. I bent down to pick up the bear. When I looked up, Ryan was slipping a flash drive into my Palm files I'd need to prove my contributions at Bryce and Hartwell. He whispered. Take it. Get out before he destroys you for good. Daniel walked back to his office, adjusting his gold wristwatch. The sound of Lauren's badge hitting the trash can. I stepped outside, gripping my son's backpack in his bear. The security camera caught my reflection in the tinted glass. Rain falling, a broken woman with fire in her eyes. The wind tugged at my hair. Something had shifted. Sometimes, being disposable is the universe's greatest favor, I thought as images and realizations swirled in my mind. 4 years. For years believing that if I worked hard enough, said yes to every overtime hour, every last-minute project, every Lauren, only you can fix this, they'd eventually see my worth. But Bryce and Hartwell never wanted my work, just my obedience. At home, in the dark, my laptop's glow lit my exhausted face. Ethan slept beside me, forehead still warm with fever. I typed furiously, eyes burning. How many nights had been like this? How many times had I promised Ethan I'd be at his school play, only to cancel because Daniel needed something urgent? I'd convinced myself I was doing the right thing, that he'd understand one day. But this morning, when the thermometer hit 103 degrees Fahrenheit and the babysitter bailed, something inside me snapped. For the first time, I said no. 12 minutes late. 12 minutes that cost me my career, or at least, the career I thought I had. Daniel in an executive meeting, presenting slides I'd pulled all-nighters to prepare. My latest analysis shows, he said, never mentioning my name. Victoria Hayes, the CEO, nodded, impressed. I'd watched him do this weekly: steal my work, wrap it in his name, and sell it as genius. And I stayed silent. Because what mattered was the company, right? The team. Bitter laugh, until the day that team turned their backs when my badge failed in front of everyone. Leaving Bryce and Hartwell for the last time, shoulders heavy, Ethan's backpack bumping against me. The stuffed bear fell again. I picked it up. The worst part wasn't the humiliation. It was realizing I'd become part of that machine. How many nights had I left Ethan crying alone to please a man who didn't even know his assistant's name? And my reward? A deactivated badge and a take only what's yours, as if 4 years of blood and tears could fit in a cardboard box. Now, I stared at the flash drive Ryan had risked his job to give me. I clenched it until my palm ached. But maybe Daniel did me a favor by firing me in front of everyone. Because for the first time, I saw it, Nicole covering her mouth in shock. Ryan sneaking me evidence. The truth: in 4 years, I'd earned more loyalty from colleagues than Daniel had in a decade. And suddenly, I understood, I wasn't losing anything. I was just waking up. I sat on a park bench, my phone buzzing with a notification: an unknown email, * Mark Bennett, Summit Global. * I sighed but didn't open it. Not yet. Because sometimes, the world needs to knock you down to remind you that you can fly. The worst part wasn't the silence. It was the noise inside my head, replaying how I'd ruined everything. That I should have swallowed Ethan's tears, left him alone with his fever, arrived on time. That 4 years of work had turned to dust over 12 minutes. I spent 2 days curled on the couch, phone off, lying to Ethan, * mommy's just on a break, sweetheart. *. Lying in the dark, listening to Ethan cough in the next room. The stuffed bear abandoned on the living room floor where I'd dropped it the day I was fired. Then the phone rang. An unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something about that afternoon, the way sunlight slanted through the window, made me hesitate, take a deep breath, and pick up. Lauren Carter? * a firm voice, no hesitation. * Mark Bennett, Summit Global. I've been following your work from afar. I think you and I have a lot to discuss. *. My hands trembled slightly as I held the phone. Outside, Ethan laughed at a cartoon on TV. I should have been suspicious. An offer like this, right after being publicly humiliated? It felt like a trap. But then he said, * I saw the report you drafted for the Orion project last year. Bryce used your slides as if they were theirs, but anyone who knows the market recognizes style. *. I opened the flash drive Ryan had given me: files, emails, proof of everything I'd done that Daniel had taken credit for. Mark didn't offer me a job. Didn't mention salary. He said, * I want to show you how Summit operates. Come for coffee. * As if I still had a choice. As if I wasn't standing on the edge of a cliff, with a son to raise and bills overdue. We scheduled the meeting for the next day. I walked into the cafe wearing a simple blazer, no badge. Mark, a man with silver hair and an easy smile, waved at me like we'd known each other for years. The first thing he asked wasn't about overtime or quotas. It was, * who's with Ethan today? *. I nearly froze. My palms sweat, my voice cracked. He's with the neighbor, * I replied automatically. But if needed, I can. No. * He cut me off. nudging a sugar jar between us. Asterisk here, family comes first. Because, asterisk he leaned in, lowering his voice like a secret. Asterisk, exhausted employees do shoddy work. And we need your best, Lauren. Not your scraps. Asterisk. My reflection trembled in the dark surface of the coffee cup. That's when I understood. This wasn't an offer. It was recognition. Someone had seen my work, the real work, not what Daniel stole. Someone knew my worth. After our talk, we agreed to meet again at 3 p.m. to sign the contract. We reconvened as planned. My hand shook slightly over the paperwork, not from hesitation, but because for the first time every line felt revolutionary. Asterisk flexible hours, childcare stipend, performance bonuses. Asterisk words Bryce would have dismissed as asterisk unnecessary coddling. Asterisk. The pen hovered over the signature line, its shadow stretching like across a portal about to be crossed. Ethan chose that moment to slap his drawing onto the table, a scribbled rainbow of US holding hands under a giant sun. It's us happy, he declared, as if it were the most obvious truth. And I realized, I wasn't just signing a new job. I was signing a pact with the woman I'd forgotten I could be. Not out of gratitude. Not out of obligation. I signed Summit's contract, asterisk, and for the first time in 4 years, I wasn't signing out of fear. I was signing for myself, asterisk. I should have felt relieved. Summit wanted me. Mark mentioned a 40% higher salary, flexible hours, an office with a view. But after accepting, I sat on the bathroom floor and shook. Not from fear, from rage. Rage at myself. For wasting years of my life, my time, Ethan's time at a company that never valued me. On my last day at Bryce and Hartwell, packing Ethan's photos into a cardboard box, Nicole walked into my office without knocking. She dropped a file on the desk. Orion Project, Lauren Carter's analysis, asterisk stamped confidential in red. Because I knew. All those years, I knew Daniel was using me. That he stole credit, falsified reports, kept me late just to prove he could. But I let him. I convinced myself it was temporary, that if I worked harder, quieter, longer, he'd finally see me. The real horror was realizing I'd taught Ethan to accept it too. Mommy has to work became our mantra. How many nights had I let him fall asleep alone? How many promises had I broken? And for what? A boss who fired me like I was a system glitch. Ethan in the school nurse's office, asterisk, clutching a thermometer with a fever while a teacher checks the clock, waiting for a mother who never arrived on time. When Mark explained Summit's remote work policy, I almost laughed. 2 days a week from home. No meetings after 5 p.m. Sick leave for kids without requiring a doctor's note. It sounded like a joke. Worse, it sounded obvious. How had I normalized abuse for so long? I opened Bryce and Hartwell's termination email on my phone. The sterile, thankless text. In the screen's reflection, Ethan appeared behind me, holding his stuffed bear. Will you make more money now, Mommy? Asterisk, he asked that night, testing the new words. I could see it in his eyes, the fear of hoping too much. That's when I realized the true cost of Bryce and Hartwell, asterisk. It wasn't the lost nights. It was what I'd let Ethan believe about his own worth, that he was an obstacle. An inconvenience. I burned the confidential report in the bathroom sink, the pages curling into flame before turning to ash. The stuffed bear watched from the counter. That night, for the first time in years, I read Ethan a full bedtime story. No emails. No apologies. When he fell asleep, I cried in the hallway, not from exhaustion. From shame. For forgetting other ways to live existed. For thinking I deserved so little. Summit Global's badge *** glowed on the kitchen table under the lamplight, pristine and used. I didn't learn about it from the news. Or LinkedIn. It was Nicole who texted me first, 3 weeks after I left, a blurred photo of Bryce and Hartwell's conference room. Empty chairs. Dark monitors. At the center, Daniel's desk buried under red folders stamped urgent in white. My phone vibrated during my first day at Summit. I ignored it until Nicole's second photo arrived, her old workstation, now abandoned. For clients pulled out this week, her message read. Orion's collapsing. No one can find the original files. I almost laughed. Those files were on Ryan's flash drive, now locked in my new desk. I typed a reply, deleted it, tried again. Behind me, Mark chatted with colleagues, laughing at something I couldn't hear. Nicole told me everything. Without my monthly reports, Bryce's calculation errors surfaced. Daniel blamed the junior team until Victoria Hayes, the CEO who'd never glanced at me twice, demanded backups. There were none. Only what I'd taken with me. Daniel in the boardroom ***, pale under fluorescent lights. A projected graph showed a 22% stock drop in 2 weeks. Ryan emailed me that night, he's deleting emails. Too late. Summit canceled their master contract this morning. I froze. My Summit. Mark hadn't told me. Probably knew I'd feel torn. I logged into Summit's system, searched Bryce and Hartwell. Dozens of results appeared, all flagged terminated in red. The cruelest irony? I didn't lift a finger. No whistleblowing. No anonymous tips. I simply left. And in leaving, I took 5 years of work no one, not even me, realized had propped that place up. A coffee cup clinked onto my desk placed with excessive care. When Victoria Hayes called, I almost didn't answer. Her number was still saved as *BHCO, do not pick up off hours. She offered everything, a raise, a VP title, a corner office. Then played her trump card, Daniel's on administrative leave. I leaned back, struck by something painfully obvious. They didn't want me for my talent. They wanted my silence. My ability to patch holes. My gift for making broken systems look functional. Through my Summit office window ***, a suited man hurried across the street. For a second, he looked like Daniel. But he wasn't. Never would be again. I hung up on Victoria. Not for revenge. But because, for the first time, I believed Mark when he said I was worth more. Summit's badge gleamed in the sunset, hanging by our entryway right beside Ethan's school backpack, the two coexisting without conflict. Victoria's email arrived at 3:47 a.m. I was awake not for work, but because Ethan had a nightmare. As I rocked him, my phone buzzed on the counter. Subject, reconnection. The body was corporate poetry, disrupted synergies, strategic realignment, fresh start. I read it 3 times to decode it. Daniel wasn't just on leave, they were dismantling his department. And they needed me to rebuild what he'd broken. The irony was so thick it ached. I drafted and deleted replies. On my laptop behind me, a Summit report glowed with my name bolded in the header. Mark summoned me the next day. Not about the email, he didn't know. About my first major Summit presentation. The board wants you in Wednesday's meeting, he said, like it was natural. Like I'd always belonged in that room. Daniel's last Bryce meeting ***. Him screaming about chartreuse slides, his favorite color, while the data was factually wrong. Asterisk, your BH system access has been revoked. Asterisk. Nicole filled in the details later. How Daniel tried to wipe files. How he blamed systemic failures. How Victoria found my old backups and realized half his reports were plagiarized from my work. Bryce's empty boardroom. Just Victoria and two directors sifting through documents. Daniel's badge face down on the table. The kicker? They discovered he'd used my login to alter quarterly reports. 4 years of falsified data. For years I could have been an unwitting accomplice. Victoria offered me twice my old salary. A seat on the board. Even a budget to rebuild the team from scratch. But when she mentioned forgiving past misunderstandings, I finally understood. They weren't asking me to come back. They were asking me to save them. To be the perfect scapegoat once again. At my first important meeting at Summit, presenting charts I created myself with my name on every slide. Mark watched from the back of the room, proud. I refused Victoria's offer immediately. Not angrily. Not dramatically. Just said no thank you and hung up. It was easier than I imagined. Because when you finally see yourself clearly, you realize some doors should remain closed. The Summit badge on my desk, next to a photo of Ethan and me at the park, both smiling, unhurried, finally at peace. The first day I worked from home at Summit, Ethan insisted on making my coffee. He spilled half the grounds, added too much sugar, and served it in a plastic cup from his toy set. For Mommy to work, he announced seriously, like an executive. I drank that dirty water that tasted like coffee grounds as if it were the best espresso in the world. On my kitchen work table sat the open laptop. Ethan beside me, drawing quietly while I joined a video conference. At Summit, no one batted an eye when I had to pause a meeting because he appeared behind me, proudly showing a rainbow he'd painted. Mark just smiled and said, "Beautiful colors, Ethan. Will you be our art consultant?" My son was so impressed that a boss knew his name that he spent the whole afternoon making drawings for Mommy's office. Organizing my new work materials, a notebook with my name engraved, a quality pen, a professional headset. All provided by the company without me having to ask. Gradually, I discovered what it was like to work somewhere that didn't see me as an operating expense. When I needed to miss work because Ethan got sick, my manager simply replied, "Take care of your boy, update us when you can." That's simple. No humiliation, no veiled threats. While accessing Summit's benefits system, I discovered to my shock that childcare assistance was included in the health plan. The most revealing moment came during the first strategy meeting. I presented an analysis that contradicted the main project. Instead of laughter or disdain, there was debate. Real discussion. In the end, the operations director said, "Lauren is right. We'll adjust course." My name. My contribution. Recorded. The bulletin board in my home office, now mixing Summit charts and Ethan's drawings. At the center, a new badge with my smiling photo, without the old tension in my shoulders. Ethan started asking in the mornings, "Do you like your work today, Mommy?" At first, I didn't know how to answer. Then I realized that yes, I did. Not for the higher salary, not for the prestige. But because for the first time in years, I didn't have to choose between being professional and being a mother. Bryce and Hartwell sent a reconnection package a month later. Custom pens, a luxury notebook, even an apology card signed by the board. Ethan looked at it and asked, "Is this a present?" I packed everything up and sent it back. Without resentment. Because presents don't erase years of disrespect. And I had finally learned the difference between being valued and being bought. Now I can put Ethan to bed, reading a story all the way through without checking the clock. My phone vibrates with a message from Mark. Great work today, that I'll only see hours later. The biggest surprise? Discovering that my best work came when I stopped being afraid. When I understood that competence doesn't need to come with suffering. And that maybe, just maybe, I deserved this all along. My work desk at Summit, where there's now a framed photo of Ethan next to the monitor, no longer hidden in a drawer like before. An envelope arrived on an ordinary Tuesday. No return address, just my name handwritten inside. A photo, my old desk at Bryce and Hartwell, empty, with wilted flowers and a turned-off computer. Scribbled in the corner, they don't know what they've lost. I held the photo up to the window light, the sun rays revealing fingerprint smudges on the edges as if it had passed through many hands before reaching me. Nicole told me later. My old team began unraveling like a pulled thread. First Ryan, who got a job with a competitor. Then Nicole, who opened her own consulting firm. Even security guard Joe, the one who always brought me coffee, quit when they found out Daniel had cut his health plan without warning. I turned the photo over, where someone had discreetly written numbers in pencil, a date, a time. The day Bryce lost the biggest contract in company history. The irony was so thick it hurt. Everything Daniel did to diminish me, to prove I was replaceable, ended up showing the opposite. Without me, without the team he treated as disposable, the projects collapsed. Clients disappeared. And Victoria Hayes, who never gave me a second glance, was now sitting in my old chair, trying to understand how to rebuild what had been burned. Daniel in a coffee shop far from downtown, in flip-flops and an old t-shirt, staring at his phone as if waiting for a miracle. Nothing came. Ryan sent me a video one night. It showed the main conference room where I'd been humiliated. Now, empty walls, chairs stacked in a corner. Daniel's desk covered in white powder, building inspection. They're evaluating the space to rent, the message said. They want to reduce by 2 floors. I closed the video without replying, but saved it to a hidden folder on my computer. Not out of nostalgia. As a reminder. The strangest moment came when Victoria called me. Not to offer me another job. To ask for consulting. She wanted to know how I structured my reports, how I maintained client loyalty. I almost laughed. Almost cried. Almost hung up. But I answered. Calmly. Without bitterness. Explained the basics as I would to any client. When she asked, why did you never complain before? I simply said, no one ever asked. Bryce didn't fail because of me. This wasn't revenge or divine justice. Just pure math. When you treat people like numbers, eventually the equation won't balance. I watched Ethan drawing in his new notebook a tall building with dark windows and next to it, a smaller, colorful one with a smiling female figure at the door. That's Mommy at her new job, he explained without looking up. When I threw the photo away, it wasn't out of anger. For the first time, I looked at my past and felt nothing. No pride, no pain. Just relief. Like taking off a heavy coat I didn't realize I was still wearing. The recycling bin in my kitchen, where the Bryce and Hartwell photo disappeared under banana peels, and an invitation to Ethan's school party, something I can finally attend. The bathroom mirror at Summit is different from Bryce's. Wider, clearer. That morning, while getting ready for an important meeting, I noticed something strange. My face was relaxed. None of that permanent tension between my eyebrows, that tightness in my lips I thought was normal. I looked like a different person. I remembered all those times standing in my former company's bathroom, hastily reapplying makeup after another sleepless night. My empty reflection, shoulders tense as if carrying invisible weight. Ethan noticed first. Mommy doesn't make that angry face anymore, he announced at dinner like stating a scientific fact. He was right. Gradually, without realizing, I'd stopped living in constant alert. Opening my new planner no longer filled with frantic red notes but with blank spaces, reasonable hours, simple reminders, Ethan, recital 5 p.m. When I found my old Bryce badge at the bottom of a drawer, the photo still showed that serious woman with slightly frightened eyes, as if expecting to be exposed at any moment. I put it in an envelope with Ryan's flash drive. Not as a trophy. As a reminder of who I'd never be again. Ethan proudly showed his report card with improved grades. Teacher says I'm more focused, he explained, unaware the real reason was the nights I could now help with homework. The biggest surprise came on an ordinary Tuesday. Mark discussed a promotion with me. I didn't tremble. Didn't doubt. Just listened, asked for details, and agreed to think it over because now I knew I had that right. Sitting at the kitchen table reading the promotion contract, Ethan drawing beside me. The scene bathed in warm evening light, unhurried, unpressured. When I randomly met Victoria Hayes in a corporate elevator, I barely recognized her. Her impeccable suit now seemed like a disguise, her restless eyes searching my face, maybe for forgiveness, maybe envy. We both knew. I just smiled. Not a victorious smile. Just human. And that unsettled her most. I realized I'd truly been freed the day I stopped telling stories about Daniel, about Bryce, about injustice. When the narratives stopped being what they did to me and became what I built. I attended Ethan's recital, my calloused hands now clapping slowly, guilt-free. His backpack held my silenced phone this time by choice. The past no longer hurt. Not because it was erased, but because I finally understood my true place, behind me. The envelope with the old badge forgotten on a high shelf beside memory boxes Ethan will explore someday, finding no shadow of the mother I almost became. My new Summit office's horizon is vaster than I'd imagined possible. 18 floors above the city, I see my old commute to Bryce and Hartwell, that darker, smaller tower I can barely distinguish now. I remembered my last day at Bryce, carrying a cardboard box to the parking lot, cold rain streaming down my face. Now in memory, that pain belongs to someone else. Ethan turned 7 last week. For the first time, I organized a proper party, not rushed, not guilty, with homemade cakes and colorful invitations. He got a microscope as gift. For when you're a scientist, said Mark, who showed up without being asked. Sometimes passing Bryce, I see new employees heading to lunch. Young faces, perfect suits, quick steps. I feel no anger. No pity. Just hope they'll someday discover they deserve more. Like I did. Daniel on a professional network, outdated photo, generic consultant title. No mutual connections. No likes on his sparse posts. Summit offered a Europe trip to close an international deal. I brought Ethan. For the first time in years, my passport wasn't dusty. As he slept on the plane, I watched clouds and remembered how I'd almost believed my world fit in that glass room where Daniel made rules. My notebook now mixes professional reports with places to visit with Ethan. On the last page, his drawing, us holding hands under a round yellow sun. The real victory wasn't Bryce's fall. Not my name on the door. Not my tripled salary. It was realizing my life could be bigger than I'd dared dream. That being a mother and brilliant professional wasn't a contradiction, it only seemed so because they'd convinced me it was. Ethan proudly showed his first work, a Summit drawing with a tiny female figure in the window. That's you, Mommy. In your new castle. Today when I look back, I see no villain. Just a small man in his small world. And me? I learned to fly. My office view where city skyline blends with endless sky, no limits, no barriers, infinite. The greatest revolution begins when we refuse to fit in spaces that limit us. Sitting in my new office, watching sunset gild the city. Ethan climbs into my lap. I smile, holding him as the camera pulls back, revealing the boundless horizon. And you? Have you ever looked in the mirror and realized you deserve more? If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Subscribe for more stories of reinvention and courage. Leave a like if you believe we all deserve our happy ending. Turn on notifications because every life transformation deserves witnesses.